Khadija Kalifa,
Hi.
welcome to the Power and Destiny podcast with me, Akmal Salim. Really looking forward to this conversation. It's interesting because I was thinking to myself as I introduce you, I'm going to say these words, right? I was thinking, I say this on every single podcast, right? That I'm really looking forward to it. But I genuinely mean it because everyone, we're so selective in terms of who we want to have conversations with and who I want to have on the podcast that I genuinely am really excited to have everybody, because there's either personal stuff that's relative to maybe something that I've engaged with or seen or have an interest in what they're doing, or it's because we've known them for a very long time and we've that journey was something together and want to share that. So really appreciate you taking time, coming out and having this conversation. I know the audience is going to really like this one.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No, absolutely. So as a very quick background, most people know you because of The Apprentice.
Yeah.
So that was in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
You became one of the finalists. You nearly won it.
Yeah.
And so today, as always, what we're going to do is dive into that as an event.
Mm-hmm.
But that event is really interesting to me because it was, how many applications was there roughly?
I think 60,000.
Yeah, so 60,000 people applied
Mm-hmm.
to go onto The Apprentice. And I was a massive fan of The Apprentice back in the day when it
too.
first started,
Yeah.
because we're entrepreneurs and, we love business. And so this kind of TV show suddenly had some kind of, relative, it might have even shaped
Yeah.
me as an individual, because I was seeing all these people run around doing business, and that kind of, there was an inspiration to that. And so I'm really keen to understand some of the behind the scenes stuff that happened.
Yeah.
But also just look into 60,000 people and you were chosen.
Mm.
Now, as you know, this is the Power and Destiny podcast. So like your destiny is attached to this event that took place.
Mm-hmm.
And how did you get there? What did that feel like? And then we're going to go into all of this.
Love it.
And then, of course, talk about your journey post The Apprentice as well. And we're sitting here in Dubai. How did you end up here? Why did you end up here?
Yeah.
From Peterborough to Dubai. Like, what was that all about?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's going to be really interesting to discuss as well. So I think we're going to jump into this now.
Let's go.
Yeah?
I'm ready.
Okay, so the first thing I always ask all the guests is, what does power and destiny mean to you?
Oh, power. Power for me is being able to turn up when I want, how I want, with who I want, without somebody else telling me you're late, you can't have the day off to be with your children, etc. So for me, power is freedom, and the freedom to be able to do what I want, when I want, where I want, with who I want. Destiny, obviously I'm Muslim. So for me, Allah has planned everything already. But in the last few years I've had, and I get it now when I'm talking, those goosebump moments. I'll say something like, I need to sell this many tickets, and then that day something will happen. Or I said I need to get the global partnership out more, and then 2 days ago I get a message from you and another podcast host, and I've recorded 2 podcasts today, and I'm like, Allah, shukran, thank you for hearing. But do I think I'm special? Absolutely not. Do I think that I lead with integrity and honesty? And do I live by doing everything with good deeds? Yes. And do I think that comes back tenfold? You can call it karma, you can call it religion, you can call it whatever you want. I think when you give out good comes back. So my destiny is down to Allah, and my power is being free.
I really like the way that you've internalized that.
Yeah.
And how you kind of, emphasize that actually, and a lot of podcasts generally at the moment are talking about lifestyle, that what business enables you to do. I wanted to make sure that we didn't do that here in this podcast. And it was about actually acknowledging the fact that we don't actually have a phenomenal amount of power when you really think about it.
For sure.
We are leaving ourselves to destiny, fate, qadar, and all the other things that people associate themselves with in their languages. And we're living our lives every day like that, right? And so it's always super interesting to see how every individual guest internalizes power and destiny. Let's go to that destined moment, though. And we're going to go before it as well, but I think we need to go there first. That destined moment where 60,000 people or so applied for The Apprentice.
Yeah.
But you were chosen to go onto the show and obviously appear in the show and become a finalist.
Yeah.
Let's go to that moment of your life. Maybe rewind a little bit leading up to, like, why did you apply? Did you actually think you could get on? The moment that you got the message you were selected. Like, let's dive into that a little bit and share that.
Yeah. Where shall I start? Okay, we're going to start with, I think, how I got into business in the first place. Is that a good place to start?
Yeah, let's do it.
So I studied law at Middlesex University, shout out to Middlesex alumni, in Hendon. And in school, I was always super ambitious, bit naughty, bit loud, class clown. But I remember my best friend said, one day you're going to be a bank manager. That was the thing, bank manager. And then after bank manager, it was, I'm going to be a lawyer. Because I used to argue a lot in school, but never for bad. If somebody did something wrong, I used to say I bully the bullies, which is a bad thing to say, but I didn't bully anybody. But if I saw something bad happening, I couldn't keep my mouth shut. So when I was good at arguing or good at debating, my teachers always said to me, you need to be a lawyer, because when you see something wrong and injustice, you just can't let it go. And I've always been that way. I just can't let it go. So that led me to go and study law. And I'll be honest, I was working 3 jobs while I studied my law degree. Phones for you remember?
Yeah,
phones for you, for
yeah.
less, phones for you. Yeah, I did that.
We've got to clip that and then we've got to send it. They're not even around now, right?
Yeah,
Who
no,
brought
they're
them
not.
up?
It's a shame. But so I worked at Phones for You. I worked at a shisha bar and I worked at Pizza Hut because I grew up a single parent household. My mum didn't have the money to send me to uni. So I hustled and I didn't get the best grade. I got a 3rd. But fast forward, after uni, I went back to Peterborough for a year, carried on working in Phones for You. And then I was like, I miss London. What am I doing? I need to use this law degree. So I started working for the Financial Ombudsman Service, which people don't actually know. I worked for the Financial Ombudsman Service for 2 years and I fell pregnant with my eldest daughter, Soraya. She was born starved of oxygen and at risk of cerebral palsy, which is another thing. Unless you watched the behind the final 5 episodes, you wouldn't have known that. That really affected me. So when she was a month old, we were living in Boreham Wood and we moved back home to Peterborough. Well, when I was due to go back from maternity leave to the Ombudsman, I Googled a cheap business to start because she had a specialist coming to Peterborough every couple of months to check her mobility skills. And once I weighed up the cost of childcare and travel back to London from Peterborough, and also I didn't want to be away from my daughter. I wanted to know, is she going to be okay? Is she going to talk? Will she walk? So I Googled a cheap business and I went to Wilkinson's and bought £20 worth of cleaning products, Star Drops, I remember. And I used Simon, my partner's old car, his first ever car, a 3-door Polo. And I just started taking Soraya. I got some leaflets on Vistaprint. I put them in village shops. And I started taking Soraya with me in a car seat to go and clean houses. Well, within 2 years, I had 34 members of staff. And I employed a lot of mums during school hours, which brings me back to karma. Everything I do is like with a want and a desire to help others. If I can allow somebody to be able to work part-time because they can't do 9 till 5, but they can do 9 till 2, then that's what I did. So I created the cleaning business. How did I get onto The Apprentice? Well, actually, we grew so quickly, the cleaning business, because I do everything with, I want the best customer service, and we were eco-friendly. And don't get me wrong, it was a headache, logistical nightmare, profit margins minimal. But I was in it and I had tunnel vision and I was like, it's called Opal and Pearl. That's my birthstone. That's Soraya's birthstone. They're both white stones. It's going to take over the world. I remember in the final 5 telling Claude Littner, I'm going to clean the whole gherkin. And I believed it when I said it. I have always had that forthright, I'm going to make it personality. And so in 2017, I applied for The Apprentice and I missed the email where they invited me for the interviews. Awkward. So then in 2018, Simon applied. And then, they emailed me back. So there's a series of going backwards and forwards to London. There was one moment, and I might sound a little bit overly confident here, but there was one moment where I thought, they want me. And it was the second time you had to go for the interview. So you went the first time and then you go the second time. I think it was like 4 or 5 going back and forwards to London. And then we were all in like a semicircle, maybe 30 of us. And they said, okay, we're going to call you forward and you need to do an elevator pitch and tell everybody who you are. And I stood in that room and I don't know where I was, maybe 6 people in. And they went, Khadija Kalifa. And I thought, why are they asking me? And then I stepped forward and I bossed it. Yeah. And I remember everybody else like, damn it, she was really good. And I stood back and it was like, okay, if we call out your name, you're going to the next floor. And I shouldn't give all this away, but you go to the next floor and the next floor. And then by the top, all these people that were below and had all this confidence and are not there anymore. And there's like 9 of you in a room. At that point, I thought, they like me. Then there was another, you had to go back and build a flat pack furniture and pretend it was like a demo of being on The Apprentice. Okay. And they asked, does anybody want to be project manager? And I was like, oh, no. I would never be project manager in week 1. So I sat back for the interview process. And another girl said she'd be project manager. But she was bad. What can I say? She wasn't any good. So they were recording just like this. They were recording everybody's reactions. And I just remember my face thinking, what is she doing? And I honestly think they got me on the show because my face says how I feel and I can't help it. Yeah. So when somebody did something annoying, my face said it. When somebody was snaky, my face said it. Then my voice said it. I think, they saw that I was just focused on business and that I just wanted to be successful and that I didn't have time for people that would mess around or not take it seriously. Yeah. So that's how I got on, I think. Just keeping it real with Khadija.
What's obviously, as Apprentice fans, I mean, we were, and I was, and us as a family, we used to really enjoy watching it. At the beginning, especially at the beginning, we were there. To be honest, now we just don't feel like it's as real as it was back then.
They need to bring me back. Like, they need me back. They'll change the game.
Because it's really interesting how personalities maybe on camera might be different in real life or whatever, and appreciate there's an element of that, but behind the scenes I think is what really people want to understand. They want to understand like how did you get selected or whatever. So this is really cool how they have like this building and everybody's getting sent up the floors. So you've done all of that. Did you get a phone call or an email to say you've been selected?
So this is another thing where I thought, they really want me, because they said you will get a phone call so you could either be in fully or on the wait list as if somebody else pulls out, so you're like a backup option, or it's a no. And we will call you at 10 a.m. And I remember mine being 10:01 on that morning. And I thought, I've got to be the first one there getting on it. I honestly remember going to the process a little bit, I've got this. Yeah. I don't know why. I don't know where that sudden surge of confidence came from. But I think they saw the realness. And I remember in the wrap party, fast forward right to the end, Paul, the producer, sorry, Paul, I'm exposing you here, but he held my hand like this. And he was like tearing up. I think it was his first year of him producing it. And it had gone really well. And the ratings were really good. And he held my hand like that. And he went, Khadija, thank you. Thank you for being exactly as you were in the audition process on the show. Because I guess a lot of people do that, right? They audition and they're like, yeah, I'm gonna tread over everyone, and I don't care, and they talk a big game, but then when it comes to reality, or they go on the show, then they shy back because they want to win, and they think if they're behind the scenes then they'll win. And I think Paul just respected that actually I am who I am, whether I'm in front of Lord Sugar, in front of the janitor, whoever. Like, Khadija doesn't change. I think he liked that.
Okay. So let's talk about the dynamic then within. So you get taken away, or you were taken away to a house. Yeah. How long were you away for?
10 weeks.
Okay, so 10 weeks. Your phones are taken.
Yeah. Everything.
You've been literally kind of, exiled to a particular point.
Yeah.
Were you ever tempted? Like, I always used to think when I was watching,
Yeah.
I had a feeling obviously this was happening.
Yeah.
But I always used to think, oh, you know what? If I was on the show, when I was doing one of the tasks, like I would just go into one of the shops and be like, oh, let me use your phone for 2 minutes.
No, they film. You've got your mic on 24/7.
That's got
Yeah, they can't. No, they catch
so
you
how
out.
does it work? Yeah. So
And also, if you spoke about task when the cameras weren't rolling, you'd be deducted time for your team. So nobody wanted to be penalised because we obviously all wanted to win.
Interesting.
So yeah,
Okay.
there was
So
you weren't stepping out, and our phones were actually locked away. So they were locked away, credit cards, debit cards, everything. After task, you'd have a few days of task, one full day of boardroom, which people don't understand because you see 30 minutes.
Yes.
We called it silent sandwiches. You weren't allowed to talk all day.
Wow.
You got your makeup done in your hair done on boardroom days, and then you were there for a whole day with Lord Sugar. Sometimes if you were in the Losers Cafe, you wouldn't get home till 11 o'clock at night. And the viewer sees 30 minutes. They don't see that the task took 3 days. And then, it's great editing. One thing I've got to say, that show is incredible. The way everything's produced. Lord Sugar is not scripted. The put downs that just come off, I mean, I respect them. How can you come out with all of those put downs so quickly? I love it. But yeah, so my kids, I've got 3 now, but I had 2 at the time. They were 4 and 2. And so I would call them for 5 minutes every couple of days, literally 5 minutes. They timed you, and they'd cry and I'd cry. And then it was traumatizing. And then I'd get off the phone. So it was really, for me, I was not there to mess about. And I think that's what came through on camera. You said earlier about some people now go on for the, to mess around kind of. That was the opposite of what I went on for. I genuinely thought I was going to win that 250,000 investment and my cleaning business was going to clean the gherkin.
Yeah.
That was the plan.
But I think that's why it's reality when it comes to business, right? And that's where, as we talk and dive into things like power, and that's obviously a massive part of life, is like, how much power do we actually think we have?
I know.
And so you went in confident, you went in with a feeling, you went in, but there's this thing which I always talk about with the guests, is like, I feel like there's a time where you have a certain amount of power and then you become powerless. When you become powerless, destiny takes over.
Yeah, for sure.
And this process happens again and again. And in fact, we become a little bit more maybe arrogant in ourselves, where we think we have the power. And the more you think you have the power, the less you actually achieve. But when you start to actually accept, I'm quite powerless in this moment, or I'm powerless in this particular situation,
life.
then you kind of step back and okay, well, I'm not. Can't. That's when something ends up happening.
Yeah. Although, on the contrary, I do think for me it's about mindset. When I've put, like with The Apprentice, when I have it in my head, I'm gonna do this, and in that moment when I auditioned, I'm gonna win it. Then it happens. So feeling powerless is probably not something that I ever feel comfortable feeling, because if I ever get to that moment of feeling like I can't do this anymore, this is we all do in business, stuff goes wrong. Recently I had an investor situation, stressed me out, so if I get to that point where I'm like, I can't do this, what am I doing this for? I just want to, be with my kids. I want to just watch Christmas movies. I have those thoughts. Why am I doing this? What am I doing this for? Then I think you're doing it because you're building generational wealth. You're doing this because you're smart. Mashallah. You're doing this because you've got the ability to do it. You're doing this because doors are being opened for you. You're doing this because you're a people person. People like, know, and trust you. So why would you not use that? So yeah, I don't feel comfortable feeling powerless. I think you're right. The power is not always in my hands. The power is in the opportunities. The power is in Allah. The power is in the energy that I give out. But I don't like to sit in a funk. And for me, being powerless would be sitting in that funk of like, I can't make change. I genuinely believe if I wanted to be an astronaut, I would be one. Whether that be my destiny or my power, I'm unsure. But I put that into my head that whatever I want to achieve, I'm going to do it.
And I think that single-mindedness is super important for people who want to achieve a goal, right? So I think absolutely, you know, people like yourself, you know, and other people who are just so driven. And I think that this is where it comes down to, you know, what actually drives you though? You know, you've talked about things like generational wealth, but if we just kind of go through, it's like, what drives you?
So, I mean, that's quite an easy question for me. I grew up in a single parent household. My mum struggled financially. We had bailiffs come to the house. You know, I grew up in an underprivileged area. It was the norm for that kind of stuff to happen. It was the norm for us to not have money, you know. And I just remember, I think maybe I was 10 or 11, and I said to my mum, I'm going to be rich, really rich. And I remember my best friend, her stepdad had a swimming pool in his garden, and they were actually a huge part of why I wanted to be successful, because I remember going to her house and thinking, whoa, they have a swimming pool in their garden? What? And then I was like, well, if he can get a swimming pool in his garden, I can get a swimming pool in my garden. And honestly, I think that's how I think about everyone. I have a lot of really wealthy friends now that I can tap into and talk to anytime. And even sitting in front of Lord Sugar and stuff, I never have that fangirl feeling. You know, like some people really fangirl. I don't fangirl over anyone. I don't know if it's my religion or whatever, but I just don't. What I do, though, is think, they got there. How am I going to get there? And then I'm like a sponge and I want to absorb everything. So I say, I don't need anyone to buy me dinner. I don't need you to do anything for me. What I need you to do, if you can, just tell me how you did it. And I'm the more entrepreneurs that I sit around that are super successful, they actually love my desire to hear their story. Because I think when they get to a certain point, like some of my friends here with all the Rolls Royces and all the properties and everything, I don't think anybody at that point asks them, well, where did it start? And sometimes they want to, like you're doing right now. We want to talk about where it started, because actually inside is still that person that lived in the council house and saw the bailiffs and saw her mum cry. I did a post on LinkedIn about this. For me, I associated having no money with struggle, and having money with a good life. So that was it. It wasn't because I wanted shiny objects, and I'm still not like that. But I didn't want to see my mum on the floor crying because she had financial trouble. So what could Khadija do to change that? I'm going to create generational wealth. And everyone that I know and love, or is a blood relative or a friend, is never going to have to suffer, inshallah, because Khadija's going to be there to save the day. And that's basically what has been my driver, and is still my driver, because I'm still... People say, wow, you've done so much. I'm like, I haven't even started. Yeah.
And that's a common thing that a lot of us actually feel when people come to you and say, oh, you know, you've done so much.
Yeah.
And we're like, look, we haven't actually started, or
No.
you never feel that. And that's, and it's a common story, even when you go and you speak to other, you know, successful entrepreneurs and people, is no one's really dwelling on what you've done, you know, and there's a big misconception a lot of the time when it comes to quote unquote success. And again, for me personally, success is not, you know, just wealth. You know, success is being comfortable with wealth, being comfortable without wealth. That there's
For
success
sure.
in that, absolutely.
Yeah.
And obviously today, again, and I go back to the root of why we're having a conversation, and maybe a bit different to what a lot of podcasts are out there at the moment, which is about young people need to understand the journey to being successful, quote unquote, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Not the end product and the glamour and the lifestyle that they think comes with success, or that they feel is success.
Yeah.
Wealth is part of that, and that's totally cool, and wealth is important, and there's lots of really, really important things that wealth creates and gives from
Like
a family
freedom.
perspective. Absolutely. That's it. But I've reflected on wealth for 8 years now, and again, like properly sat down and thought about what is wealth, how does it work, and when I sold my first business, you know, we moved to Medina, and Medina's where we've basically lived for the last, you know, 8 years or so, and that's when someone had said to me actually that 9/10 of barakah is in trade. So the first thing I did when I turned up is I started trading. You know, so I just started trading. I started sending containers to different parts of the world.
Love that.
And that actually sparked something for me that led me into, you know, launching a finance firm, an investment firm, and financial services, and supporting people. And that's a different story. But the point, since then, I've reflected on wealth a lot, and even wealth means different things for different people.
For sure.
And one definition is not what it is for everybody.
Yeah. But what I find really sad, actually, and you touched upon it then, is this shiny object syndrome, that wealth equals, and you know what, I'm being a hypocrite. I've got a Chloe shoe on and I've got an Hermes belt. I've maybe got 10 designer items. And, you know, if I see something and I really love it, I'll buy it. But other than that, I'm not that fussed, you know, like I'm not. What makes me sad is that we now live in a world where it's like, oh, have you got the latest Hermes bag? I will tell you one thing, and you heard it here straight. I don't care how successful I am. I'm not spending £100,000 on a bag. I don't. And, you know, they go, oh, well, it's all relative. Because if you're, yeah, it's all relative. I would give it away or find a way to build a school, something. And I'm not judging anyone, because different things make different people happy. I just personally cannot find that connection between, and it's bad in a way, because I've lost diamond earrings, I've lost watches, because it's almost like I don't have a connection to that material item. You know, I can't ever imagine crying unless a family member had bought me something that meant a lot. I can't imagine crying because I lost an earring. It's just not something that I relate to. I feel like my purpose is to try and help people remember that you came into this world with nothing and you're going to leave with nothing. And instead of what watch you're wearing or what bag you're carrying or whatever, let's focus more on our impact that we have to other human beings, because being Muslim, on the day of judgment, Allah doesn't care what Birkin you had. At the end of the day, it matters how you make other people feel, you know? And I just think that the world is just clinging on. And it's great for businesses, designer brands. I'm not trying to put designer brands down. A lot of hard work goes into it and it's great for them. But what has happened to us that you sit and have dinner? I have a rule. Anyone that has dinner with me is not allowed to sit on their phone. Because the amount of times I've gone out to eat in Dubai and you see the couples and they're like that, what? I don't understand what's happening. Am I old school? I'm only 35. I don't understand. Why are we sitting on our phone? My kids are not allowed to sit on their iPads when we eat. We could put the TV on in the background and watch it collectively, but there's no iPads at the table. No one's watching their phone when they're eating with me. I hate that, you know? And I hate that we're just in this world of like, I've got to be rich because I need that bag because someone else has got that bag. And people are getting themselves into severe debt and mental health issues because they're trying to keep up with the Joneses.
Yeah, but that's obviously part of why, and again, people feeling comfortable with themselves.
Yeah, it's an insecurity thing on them, I've noticed.
And it's also actually the number one thing that when people ask me about business or my journey or whatever, personally, I've tried my hardest to actually spend as much time possible to know who I am as an individual.
Yeah.
Not anything else.
It's a journey.
And the journey a lot of people think is outwardly, and it's natural. It's natural because that's what you're taught.
Yeah,
that's how you're taught, and that's what young people. And again, for me, the podcast is primarily for younger people who are going on a journey.
For sure.
On an entrepreneurial journey, or on a journey to become an elite athlete, or a journey to become, you know, the person who does the most amount of good.
Yeah.
In a charity or whatever their journey is. And regardless, whether you're trying to become an athlete or you're trying to become a super successful business person or you're trying to build a career in a firm or a company, everyone's journey actually is internal first.
For sure.
And that's why we try to talk as much internally as possible. So yeah. I really like the fact that you personally have talked about how you don't like, for example, phones on TV. That's inherent in you. We are living in a very different generation. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But let's go back into, and again, I'm going to go back into The Apprentice because I think otherwise we're going to talk a lot.
Yeah.
Because when it comes to all those different people and there's different personalities, everyone might not have actually agreed to what you've just said now.
Then they're wrong.
Yeah. Okay. That's one way of doing it.
Then they're wrong.
Right?
There's right and wrong, and if you don't agree with me, you're wrong. No, funnily enough, you said about inwardly learning about yourself, is that that has been my thought process forever. I know right from wrong. I have a very strong moral compass. My dad always taught me that way. So when someone's wrong and they're trying to argue that they're right, like in a boardroom, I was dumbfounded. But you're wrong. It doesn't matter what you say, you're still wrong. And it's taken me a lot, actually, the last 5 years to go, okay, people have different truths. They're still wrong deep down. But what their truth in their mind is their truth. I just thought there's a book called Surrounded by Idiots. Am I allowed to say that word?
Yeah.
But there's a book called Surrounded by Idiots, and a friend of mine and a business mentor bought me it because sometimes that's how I feel. Because I've got this way of how things should be done, and other people think differently, or they'll act in a backstabbing way, or they do this. And I'm like, but they're wrong. So I'm trying to read and better myself to be able to cope with those situations. I definitely have ADHD to some degree. I haven't been clinically diagnosed, but anybody with ADHD points me out a mile off. Every ADHD trait there is, I have. One of the traits that I didn't know is a strong issue with injustice. So I have a serious issue with injustice. So you're, like you said, when I was in the boardroom and things were going wrong, or I saw someone do something and they weren't supposed to, So now, as I've got older, I've realised, you know what, Khadija, you don't have to fight every battle. Every battle is not yours to fight. Sometimes it just has to play out destiny. Sometimes it just has to, I'd be a spokesperson for every, if somebody was rude to you outside just now, before you've said a word, I'm in. And that's how I've always been. Excuse me, that's not right. Who do you think you are? And then I thought, you don't always have to be that way, actually. Let other people have their power and their destiny. And sometimes you can just keep it quiet.
But that's an interesting thing, because obviously that's happened over a series of events, over a series of experiences that you've gone through, and also just a series of, you could say, reflections around how that makes you feel on a personal level. You know, I think a lot of people will relate to what you've just said there, because again, we do live in a world where we do think we are really, really important, as we do, right? That's normal, natural, and everybody, there's a lot of kind of scientific, and human behavioral kind of projects that kind of tell you that, look, that's ego is actually yourself, and that's something that's there naturally, right, with everyone. And so the internal journey is actually understanding your ego,
for sure, so that
you can control it, and almost turn it into a power.
100%. I love that. Because I know I'm not egotistical at all. Honestly, I'm like so down to earth, chill, whatever. But one thing I do have an ego with is someone telling me what to do. That's my thing, and that's when my ego comes up. Oh, sorry, you told me what? No, no one tells me. And I don't know why. Maybe it's that I left home when I was 15. I'm having therapy and I'm reading on my, why can no one tell me what to do? Why am I unemployable? If I got a job and someone reprimanded me for being 15 minutes late, I would lose it.
But
why?
I think that's the same with a lot of us who have gone on this. I'm the same, personally. I have a similar thing, which is with work, I'm saying, which was, I couldn't work for someone because it was very difficult to accept orders. I know.
But is that our ego? Are we egotistical for that?
I think there's definitely an ego part of that.
Yeah.
I think that there's a part that we have to work on. I'm not sure. When you find out, just drop me a message.
I will.
Yeah, because when you work that out, just send me a message. Hey, you know what? I worked it out. It was this. This is why we don't like it when someone tells us what to do. That's a common thing that I've seen with a lot of people in this space, entrepreneurs. We all relate to that.
Yeah.
I think that there's different reasons for why people are wired like that. But again, as you dive in,
you'll figure it out.
You start working those little things out, which make you better.
Yeah.
From a decision-making perspective.
Yeah.
It makes you better from, a communication perspective, an understanding perspective. And ultimately, again, we live in a world where everybody wants to achieve everything yesterday. and no one wants to take the journey.
I know.
And I was like that.
Me too. I'm still like
100%.
I'm like, why am I not there yet?
Yeah.
Why am I here? I'm supposed to be, the impatience. Impatience.
You know, and I again, with the young people who specifically want to understand how to get to a particular point, I always say to them, take your time.
Yeah.
You know, I said that if I was to go back.
But if you told yourself, but would you?
I don't think I would.
Because I wouldn't.
I wouldn't do it.
And if someone told me to take my time, I'd be like, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'll do it yesterday.
But that's the interesting part. I think you have to work out when you're speaking to those people who is willing to understand what that means. Because I'm pretty sure anybody who goes through this process will go, as they get older, will come back and say, you know what? Yeah, I should have just taken my time.
Yeah.
And taking time is not taking time to become successful. That's not a problem. You can become successful in a year, no problem for me.
Yeah.
Taking time is actually just not rushing so that you can totally absorb what you're doing.
For sure.
And taking maximum learning from that and putting yourself, because I look back on my journey and I think to myself, you know what, when I was younger, you know, I'd go into a meeting and I thought, because that's just where I thought, is I had to be somewhere or something for the person on the other side of the table to respect me.
Yeah, for sure.
But now, being the other
side of the table,
being on the other side of the table, I think to myself, you know what? I know where this young person is.
Yeah.
I wish they would just be honest with me
and be themselves.
I
know.
And that's what I mean.
We've all done it.
We've all done it, right? And so that's a massive reflection where I'm always thinking, whenever I go into a meeting and some young person, I know, not because I'm clever, I just know because I've been there.
Yeah.
And I think, you know what? That was me.
I know.
And I understand it.
Yeah.
But I do think, I reflect back to myself, you know, what would I have achieved if I was myself and honest back then, maybe?
Yeah.
In terms of that, I haven't done this or I haven't got there. You know, so I'm not going to pretend I have, because I think that this person needs to hear that.
Going on your taking time, what I'm seeing a lot at the moment is people starting projects and ending them like that because the ROI didn't happen quick enough, or the opportunity, they didn't make as many sales. I remember after The Apprentice, when I decided to close down the cleaning business, which was a bold decision, I started working with a property company called Progressive Property, and a guy called Rob Moore gave me an opportunity to go and help them. Yeah. And I worked the Grant Cardone 10X conference, and I'll be honest though, it was a huge, one of the trainers, another trainer, not Rob or his team, I won't mention the name, but he walked through the office and I had a headset on and he went, I just saw you in Lord Sugar's boardroom and now you're Rob Moore's call girl. And I remember feeling like someone had stabbed me in the gut, like, oh my God, everybody thinks I should be a millionaire and I've closed the cleaning business and I don't know what I'm doing with my life. But Rob said something to me during that, and it was the best 18 months I spent, because he taught me how to monetize a webinar. I launched a podcast, Keep It Real with Khadija. I made £80,000 that year just in, events, mentorship, all these different things. I sold out a retreat in Ibiza and then had to cancel because of COVID. I learned so much from Rob and his business and training and property. So that was my destiny. That's what was meant to happen. That was the destiny. I didn't know what was meant to happen. I reached out to any opportunity. My destiny was to watch Rob in action and take that and learn it. And I always talk about him and I always rate it because he gave me a lifeline and it helped me out. But one thing he said to me is focus. Focus on one course until successful, whatever it stands for, right? And I was like, why is he saying focus? And at that point, people were contacting me about Arbonne, network marketing, and this and that. And anything somebody came to me with, I was like, I'll do it. You know, in the last 3 years, if anybody approaches me to be involved in any business that's not Full of Beans or the Global Partnership, I'm not interested. And that's not because I think my businesses are better. No, because I spent a couple years just trying to get that quick hit, that quick win. What's going to make me rich overnight? And when you say take your time, I'm at that point now. I've got 4 Full of Beans stores. We're launching the franchise. I want 55 in the next 5 years. Inshallah, we'll get there. We've got the franchise pack. Everything's going. I'm having calls with people in India. Russell Kamer, I'm having meetings. Like, what? This business that I created, I'll get on to how I created the coffee shops. And the Global Partnership is business networking in Dubai, which is great. I get to meet people like yourself that are like living the same journey and understand the feelings that I'm feeling. But that focus on one course until successful, when he said it initially, I thought, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, please, I can do everything. No, you can't actually. You can't be a jack of all trades, because you will be a master of none. Yeah. And you do need to focus. And the business might take 4, 5, 6 years to become profitable. But that you have to have an art. You have to have an art of knowing, is it the one or is it not? And that is something I think can't be taught. With the cleaning business, no one told me to close it down. Actually, after The Apprentice, I created eco cleaning products I went and created boxes in where Tom Ford and everyone create theirs in Milton Keynes that would go through the letterbox. I was starting a Kickstarter Cedars campaign to raise money for Opal and Pearl. One day I woke up and something inside me went, it's not the one. It's not the one. And the courage that took for me to say, I've got to close this down. I've just taken it on The Apprentice. Everyone knows me as the cleaning girl. And now I've come out and I'm closing it down. I asked so many different people, including Claude Littner. I had a call with him, including Linda Plant. I interviewed her. I asked so many people. But until you trust your instinct, that's what, and it was the best thing I ever did, closing that cleaning business. Mentally, it was wearing me down. Emotionally, in my relationship, everything. Nobody could tell me what the right thing to do was. And that's a CEO's instinct. You have to know what to do. And when I was working with Rob Moore, I remember that when that guy said that to me, I thought, what am I going to do after this? I don't know what I'm going to do after this. And one day I passed the kids' school and there was an empty unit that had been empty for 6 years. And when I had the cleaning business, I was everything, the driver, the marketeer, the accountant. So I, at one point, had a Renault traffic van with 12 seats and I was dropping 3 cleaners here and 3 cleaners there. And I had my toddler in the car. And then I'd go to a soft play centre and it was massive and I couldn't get out on time and I needed to pick the cleaners up. Or I'd go to a Costa and there was nothing for the kids to do. So they'd be bored after 10 minutes. And I was like, why has nobody created a coffee shop that's cool with bespokely built soft play? So it's not a soft play centre and it's not a coffee shop. It's like the combined, and it's comfy seating and good Wi-Fi and good food and halal, because it was such a struggle to find anything halal in the UK in a kids centre. And it's not 5,000 square feet. Actually, it's 1,000 square feet and it's cozy and there's no white lights. There's orange lights. And I was like, nobody's doing this. I'm going to do it. And so when you say about destiny, it was destiny that unit was empty right near the kids' school. It was destiny that I closed the cleaning business down and went and worked for Rob. I didn't know what I was doing, but destiny and Allah helped guide me into, and trusting my gut, trusting my gut and using my head, you know?
No, I think that's wicked from the story perspective, is that, again, we talk about power, right? The people who see and only can see the negative of when someone does something, they're the people who don't really understand business. It's a normal thing. And again, because they see something from outside. Yeah. In fact, I see that you had so much power that you closed the business, because that's not easy. And anyone who's closed a business, failed a business, and we actually failed more businesses as entrepreneurs than we've ever made anything successful. For sure. And that's a normal process again. But the failures that we learn from is what enables us to become quote unquote successful as we go on. So for you to have the power to close, for you to then have the power to put yourself in that position, which I can imagine that would have been massively hard.
I had to eat humble pie.
That's I have to say is really incredible, because you literally have been on the most popular entrepreneurship kind of TV show in the UK. And then you've put yourself in a position where, again, people have perception. Oh, that person was on The Apprentice. They're going to be...
The worst thing is, my business, other than Jackie's, the Canadian woman, she'd sold for $1 million. My business was making the most at 72,000 turnover. When I look at 72 grand now, I'm like, what's 72 grand? But at that time, I was one of the, the rest were just starting out. But we all had this pressure when we came off the show to keep up this charade of the BS, basically, that we were all the next Lord Sugar. When really all we were a bunch of kids that had ambition and were trying to be successful. And I'm okay to say that now, and we're all okay to say that because we're further down the line. But there was a huge pressure, and it did take a lot for me to come out. And maybe I could have kept it going and I could have done commercial cleaning contracts and all of this, but when your heart's not in it, you just can't keep going.
And I think that's power, and I appreciate that with people, because it's the hardest thing to do is to close something. And close a business that was successful or not successful.
Yeah.
Or that's hard.
Yeah.
So, massive kudos to you on doing that. And I think that, moving into the soft play side. So this is like soft play. I think that the intersect between coffee. I'm a massive coffee guy, by the way. And I mean, like, that's probably a different conversation.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
But coffee, soft play, the intersect, I think that's really, really interesting. And so you've identified this business.
Mm-hmm.
You launched it. You've done 4 stores now.
Yeah.
You're franchising, which is wicked.
Yeah.
I didn't know that it was halal. So that I'm definitely going to push out massively.
Thank you.
Especially obviously in the UK, that is a big issue.
It's a big issue.
It's a big issue.
I was sick of them having fish fingers and fried. We don't have fryers in our stores. We have jacket potatoes, we have paninis, we have salads, we have Kinder milkshakes, we have smoothies, we have all of that stuff. We don't need a deep fat fryer. Every time I went to a soft play, really, my kids could only have chips.
Yeah.
And it was, I'm watching my kids eat that, and I have health anxiety. That's my Achilles heel. I'm always worrying about health because health is wealth, right? And so I just look and they're eating rubbish, and I'm like, oh no, not again.
Yeah.
So everything I didn't like, I created.
No, and I think that's a lot of people say don't create a business for yourself, but actually I don't agree with that.
No, me either.
There are times where you have to build a business for yourself because you've identified something. Validating it as you launch it, I think that's the big thing. So that's awesome. So 55 stores is your target. Obviously, you can look to franchise this out now.
55 franchised,
awesome.
yeah. So I think I might own one more myself,
Okay.
do 5. Nice,
Okay.
like round number,
Yeah.
So this one we're opening is in Alperton, in Wembley. So my first 3 are in Corby, Little Stanion, Corby, Peterborough, Bourne, Lincolnshire. This one in Alperton I'm really excited by. Firstly, because the developer came to me through LinkedIn. That conversation was the developer saying, we want Full of Beans in our development and we will give you X amount rent-free, this much CapEx. Awesome. I didn't know what CapEx was. I had to Google CapEx. I was like, wait, what? You're going to give me money? And we're talking like over £50,000. You're going to give me 50 grand to create a concept that I like. Why? And I was like, why? Because what I've created from people I've learned or spoken to, or, maybe I've got an eye for detail. I've got an eye for doing things well. We have values which I adopted from my time at the Ombudsman. I worked in Pizza Hut on and off for 6 years. I can tell you how many finger spaces a pepperoni slice should be from the other. When I was there working in uni, stinking of pizza dough, little did I know that I was learning the art of franchising. And I became a supervisor, and I worked in the East Finchley store and the Peterborough store and then this store. Everything I do, I am a sponge and I absorb it. So if I have one piece of advice for any young person, listen and learn and watch and absorb it. And because the knowledge and the skill is going to be the best thing that you ever learn. And I didn't know when I was in Pizza Hut getting annoyed because people were prank calling. I didn't know that actually that was going to change the game for me. And now I've documented everything in Full of Beans from the minute I open the door. And the values that the Ombudsman, go the extra mile, do the right thing, honesty is the best policy, share the knowledge. We have them. We've adopted those in Full of Beans. My team members go and open the door for a customer, especially if they're coming in with a car seat. You know what it's like? You've got a car seat, baby bag, toddlers crying, there's cars outside. All it takes is one member of staff to go and open the door for them, and that has changed the game. They love the brand. So it's not just about the comfy faux leather seats or even the fact that it's halal, even though that's great, but it's everything all around it in terms of customer service, what food we serve. And I'm giving all my secrets away. Nobody could do it like me, so try.
No, I think part of this and this is what a brand is, being a brand guy, I love that. And you're clear on where you are, what you're trying to build, how you're trying to build it, and that energy that you have around that brand is what people buy into when they go into the store, and that's brilliant. But I do have a question for you.
Go.
Why are you in Dubai? You've got 4 stores in the UK, which are operating, you're looking to obviously build that out.
Yep.
But you're sitting thousands of miles away.
Correct. So when I was in the UK, I worked too much in the business, not on it. And I would still do that now. If I was there and they've ran out of something, I'll go, don't worry, I'll go book us cash and carry. And that is my downfall. I am like, when we said about ego, actually, when it comes to getting stuck in, like on The Apprentice and mucking in, I don't have ego. Actually, I'll clean the toilet, no problem. I'll make the coffee, don't worry. I'll serve the customers. And that was my downfall. I wasn't leading. I was just being a lost sheep, doing whatever needed to be done. There was a plan deep down to come to Dubai, but actually it wasn't planned when I came. We came on holiday on the 1st of Jan 2 years ago, and I was just opening my Peterborough store. I am very blessed. Alhamdulillah, I'm blessed, but also I think it's because I treat people with respect. But Adam is a guy that I grew up with. We lived on the same street. I've got lots of stories that we could tell you, but him and my sister shared their 16th birthday party. Adam worked in soft play for 8 years. When I came here on holiday, Adam was my manager. And actually, Adam is the best manager. I listened to a podcast with Karen Brady where she said, "Are you a leader or a manager?" I am not a manager. I can't manage. I can't do one-to-ones. I'm soft. People don't think this about me because I was on The Apprentice, but I'm so. If we had a one-to-one and I was giving you a warning because you've done something bad and you started crying, I'll go, "Do you know what? Forget it. It's all right. You can stay here forever. I'll buy you a house."
I felt sick the first time I fired someone, so it's.
I can't physically do it. Adam is very good at that. He's very good at all of that. So I'm blessed. My sister now works for the company. I have a great management team. What do I do day to day? Well, I build up my personal brand. I raise investment. I am working on the business, not in the business, which has given me the capacity to build the franchise pack or work with a franchise team, get myself out, come and do things like this, So actually it was the best thing that I ever did, leaving the UK. Also, my kids are thriving here. Help. It's a lot easier to get help here, to be honest. Yeah. I was drowning in laundry in the UK, and cleaners are expensive. I know because I had a cleaning business. And, coming here, it's just everything is, and I'm Muslim and it's halal and they're learning Arabic and Islamic studies. So there were so many things personally. And also my partner works in Riyadh, so he's in construction. There was more opportunity for him in terms of career. And Adam is thriving being the boss. He's my boss. I'm not the boss. He's the boss. He just tells me, "Khadija, this needs paying. We need to do this." I go, "Yeah, no problem. Yep, sure." Mm-hmm. And that's the way I like it.
No, and that's awesome. We're coming to the end.
Yeah.
I think we could probably speak for another hour.
I know, right?
But I think
love it.
We've tried to keep this as succinct as possible so people can just listen to one in the commute. But there's a few things that we do. We have a little segment which is I'm going to throw something at you.
Okay.
Don't think.
Done.
Just say what you feel.
Okay.
Or that situation. So, most powerless moment.
When my daughter was born with brain damage.
Yes.
Yeah. Couldn't do a thing.
Yeah. Okay. Greatest fear.
Health. And not being here for them.
Greatest comeback.
My cafes after I closed the cleaning business.
What are you inspired by?
Saving people.
Again, we asked that with everybody just to get a feel because so many people's personalities is incredible. I love sitting here listening to the different people's personalities and how they view the world in that respect. So we have come to the end.
Thank you.
And it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks.
Full of beans. I think there's going to be some really, really interesting conversations. I'm super excited to see where that goes.
Yeah.
The global partnership. I think that's from a networking perspective here, really interesting, and how you're trying to bring people together as well on that front. Sure. I love the focus. I love where you're trying to go, and the energy that you bring into your business.
Thanks.
So thank you very much for coming, and I hope that everybody who listened to your story is inspired in some way to take it and take their own journeys, to a new level in their own right.
Thank you so much for having me. And there's a lot of stuff I shared there that people probably don't know. So tune in, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.